My name's Tomatoanus.
Hello.
This is
Havard, hello.
And with me as well is
Cobra.
Yes, and this is Fallout 4 any %. So any %, what does that mean? Glitches are allowed if you aren't aware, but it's a speedrunning event, so you all know that already. Game is being ran on patch 1.1.30. We aren't, which is one of the initial release patches. We aren't playing on the most recent version because a lot of things were patched out that we use. As well, our frame rate is capped to 60 because Bethesda, and our frame rate is tied to our physics, or our physics is tied to our frame rate, rather. And if you have a higher frame rate, the game runs faster, and it's super inconsistent. So, yeah, before I get the run going and I start we start the timer, I'm just changing it to the canon characters. Preset 3 for both. And timer will start in a second. I'll say when, and ready, and go. So the beginning of the house, also the game is in French, by the way. It's about, I think, 11 to 12 seconds faster?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Somewhere around there. Not very precise, but...
Yeah, it's very hard to tell the difference in timing for the voice files because the voice dialogues are very inconsistent, but there are two sections in the game where the amount of time for the dialogue is always set. And playing French as Nate, the husband, is the fastest possible combination of language and sex between male and female. And in this intro segment, if you're unfamiliar with the game, this is the year 2077. We're playing as Nate, who is an ex-soldier, and Nora is our wife, and she is a lawyer. And we have a baby son named Sean. And little do we know, the bombs are about to drop. And we actually have a bid war right now for the character name. And we will be doing that in a second. It looks like right now the leader is Gingenia, so that will be our character file name. And if you don't know, Gingenia is another runner of this game. He is our super mod on speedrun.com. He is a big important dude, and he has helped route the game a lot. And recently there was actually a reroute thanks to both Gingenia and this man right here. So the name Gingenia will be our character name in honor of the man himself.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Yes. So for our stats, we'll max out endurance, put 4 into intelligence, and then max out agility. The reason for that is endurance. The higher your endurance, the slower your AP will drain, AP being action points. You use AP when you sprint. And the higher your endurance, the slower the slower your AP is going to drain while you sprint. So naturally, the higher your endurance, the more you can sprint because you'll have more AP effectively. Similarly, the more agility you have, the more action points you have, so therefore you can sprint more. Also use VATS more. You would think that VATS wouldn't be very helpful in a game where you want to go fast, but there's actually a couple glitches that we can do with that. One big one called punch warping that we'll get to in a moment, and that requires VATS. It's a bit counterintuitive that you would use a mechanic that slows down time in a speedrun, but it's useful. And then lastly was intelligence. We just dumped the last of our special points into intelligence because it gives us more XP and it helps time out a certain level up at one point in the run. And when you level up, it automatically regenerates all of your HP and all of your AP. And we can do that in a running segment, which is when we'll be going to a place called Diamond City, which is Fenway if you're a fan of baseball. And it will give us a free AP bar, saving us just a little bit of time. So right now we just find out that the bombs are dropping, and we're going to make a mad dash through our neighborhood, ditching our spouse and son behind, but somehow they'll catch up. And when we run up to this military officer, I'm going to make sure I spam E to talk to him again as we finish our dialogue, and that will skip his line entirely, and we can just burst our way through the gate and run right into the vault, which we conveniently signed up to be a part of no more than 2 minutes ago. And the bombs are about to drop. The Great War in the Fallout lore is about to begin. And we're going to enter probably probably the second slowest segment of the run. So we'll be doing a bit of explaining for a glitch called COC2 is what we've been calling it lately. Okay. We'll be doing that, but before that, we do have enough time for one donation.
Kainalo donated $10 GLHF.
Thank you, Kainalo. We'll have fun. We will have fun. So as I was saying, we'll explain COC2 in a second, as well as a glitch called punch warping. But first, we need to explain something called item clipping. It's pretty standard in Fallout 4, as well as some other Bethesda games. You're able to pick up objects and put them in your inventory, but if you hold down the pick up button, you can actually wave them around and whatnot and whip them around using the game's janky physics. And if you walk backwards while holding down in Fallout 4, or looking down in Fallout 4, and you walk into a wall, then the object will continue to have its physics and it will push you up the wall, and that can push you either over the wall and into the next room over, or wherever you need to go, or through the wall. We're going to use that several times throughout the run. You'll be seeing it in about 3 minutes when I use a cone. We refer to that as, or typically I refer to it as VLC clip. We have a slow doctor here. Normally he'll be following us right behind, but he's going to sprint down the hallway and catch up to us. But yeah, anytime you see me pick up an object and walk backwards into a wall, that's item clipping or item climbing, whichever you prefer to call it. And then we'll also be doing a glitch called punch warping, which is where I try to enter VATS on an enemy or a frag mine. You can target frag mines and VATS. And I position myself like in a corner or by an object, which will cause for us to kind of be stuck, and the game can't move us. And if we cancel our VATS attack before the game does move us, it'll store our coordinates. So anytime you see me use VATS, that's what it is. And I'll then teleport, but we'll get to the teleportation part later. But let's explain COC2. So first, we have this. We have props. It's my gimmick. So this is Vault 111. It's a cell. The way Fallout is set up, as well as the other Bethesda games, is every playable area is a cell. When you enter a door, you are no longer in the place you were like previously at. You are now in the new cell. The game only has the cell loaded. So, Haver, could you hold the cell right here?
Of course I can. Okay.
So the cell is Vault 111. So right now we're walking around. Here is our player character walking around in the cell. And right now we're in the cryo chamber or whatever. Anyways, Vault 111 also has a elevator that you can ride up to the surface after you exit the whole cryo sequence, which we're doing now. Now, also in this game is a COC plane. This is a painting I did, by the way. I hope you enjoy it, Bob Ross. This is a COC plane. So say you were playing and somehow, you accidentally end up out of bounds and you fall. Well, often in games you'll fall forever. Bethesda, being the smart lads that they are, the big smart, they put in this COC plane. And when your playable character hits the COC plane, you then respawn back in the cell. And this is to prevent people who are playing casually from falling too far and soft locking their game. So if you fall out of bounds, not underneath the playable area, like how right here, then you fall, hit the COC plane, and respawn at a preset location. You'll always spawn at the same spot. Now, if you instead clip out of bounds and then fall directly underneath the cell and hit the COC plane, you'll respawn directly above where you are. Okay, so now, what if you were to fall out of bounds outside the COC plane? You keep falling past the COC plane. Well, when you eventually hit what we believe to be the cell floor, then you'll COC again, and we're able to utilize that. For some reason, it works with the COC2 plane and not the main COC plane. If you fall out of bounds outside of the main COC plane and then get back underneath the elevator and fall all the way to the cell floor, you'll respawn at the top of the elevator, which will spawn you then in the load zone, which will then put you out of bounds in the vault, skipping to have to ride a 30-second elevator ride, saving about 40 seconds.
Yeah.
But it's pretty complicated, and we'll do some clips and whatnot. But yeah, that's my Carrot Top impression with the props. Anyways, so in this vault, I'll be picking up a security baton. Make sure I take out my fist beforehand, so that it skips an animation of me whipping out the baton. I'm going to grab this cone and perform a VLC clip in a very specific crease on this doorway. This was a clip found by Gingenia, I believe. No, actually, maybe not. But we're going to get through, pick up a second cone, make sure I'm a good distance away. We're going to set up a punch warp right here. There we go. And now I'm going to attempt this second clip, which is a bit harder than the first. Quick save beforehand, just in case.
Yeah, you need to pick up the baton, or else VATS isn't enabled.
Yes. You can. Typically, you can. Let me just quick load. Typically, you can just use your fists in VATS, but VATS won't be enabled in the vault until you either pick up a weapon or pick up the Pip-Boy. And Pip-Boy is slow. We skip picking it up. Baton is fast because it's one animation. So now once we're up here, we're just going to jump to here, make another quick save, jump to here, run along a ledge, fall out of bounds, turn around, start going back under the elevator, hope it works, quick save, quick load to skip the whole falling animation, and there we go, we skipped the elevator. So yeah.
That's really hard.
That is very, very hard. We had a bunch of different setups for it, and Seeker, he's the world record holder for Doom any %. Great dude. He was dabbling around with it, and he found that setup, which is much easier but still difficult. But we're going to be triggering our punch warp, which will then spawn us in the center of the map. So while we watch that, we do have a little bit of time for some donations, if there are any. So.
Noob Salmon donated $20. Hey Tommy. Salmon here. I can't believe you made it to Europe only to finally reveal memory skip for us. Also, good luck on your run. I will donate an extra $10 if you do a cover slide for good measure.
Sounds good. We have time for one more?
Yayifications donated $25. Good to see one of my favorite speedrunners to watch here at ESA. Good luck with your run, tomatoanus.
Many thanks, my dude. Many thanks. I appreciate that, dude. So, Salmon, he mentioned memory skip. That is the pipe dream for Fallout 4 speedruns. I don't think it'll ever happen, but who knows, barrier skip happened, so you never know. Crazier things have happened. Right now, I just did a glitch called load warping, which will refresh my AP. I'll explain load warping later when we have more time for it. But there's a lot going on right now. So as soon as I load into this sewer that I just entered, I quit to the main menu and reload the save. This does two things. One, it spawns me on top of the water, out of bounds, which then allows for me to swim next to this pipe right here. And about just under 11 minutes into the run, that will hit a trigger, which gives us the nuclear option, which is the last quest in the game. So we now have the last quest in the game, which is very cool. Also, the second reason why we quit to the main menu is you may have noticed, as I said earlier, we skipped picking up the Pip-Boy because it's slow. Baton is faster. When you exit the vault, the game will automatically give you the Pip-Boy, but it'll be invisible. And quitting to the main menu and reloading your save gives you the Pip-Boy again. Alternatively, you can enter power armor, but we don't get power armor on this route anymore. So do a quick item climb right there. And as I said, we do have the last quest in the game, so why can't we go finish it right away? You may notice the estimate's an hour and not 15 minutes. Well, in order to finish the game, we need to enter the Institute. And if you are unaware, the Institute is a body, like a faction in this game. They're the big bads. In the eyes of many people, they believe they are very righteous. Bethesda with their subtle ideological writing. Yes, the game is very heavy-handed with the ideologies of each faction. Anyways, we need to enter the Institute to, spoiler alert, blow them up. So that's our goal. That's our goal for the run. And in order to get to them, though, we need to build a teleporter because there's no actual door to enter their facility. We need to teleport in. And to build the teleporter, there's a whole laundry list of items we need to do, including shop. But in order to shop, we need caps. We don't have caps, so we're going to do something different real quick. We're going to buy some rounds, sell back one, and then sell back the rest of the try and sell back the rest of the stack, and then try and buy it back. Now we have infinite, pretty much infinite
money. Yeah.
Money, yeah. Stored credit. Yes, that's the term that we use. And we have a long list of items to buy, so we're going to buy a lot of them. That should be good.
Pretty good inventory.
Yeah, that was a pretty good inventory. Yeah. We'll go through everything that we need to buy in a moment.
Yeah, inventories are random.
That was bad.
Semi-random at least.
Yes. So right here, I need to talk with Cleo and do another shopping. But before I do that, I need to move the Fat Man because we're going to steal it in a moment. And it's easier to do it when it's not next to her. So steal a Fat Man and Mini Nuke. I'm not sure if you were aware of this, but Bethesda actually did not forget entirely how to write in this game. They did remember to include big gun skill checks, so you'll be seeing that later. So we need the Fat Man and Mini Nuke for that. Other things we bought Destroyer's left leg. Very, very important. We did get a scanner, right?
Yeah.
Yes, you did.
Definitely.
Yeah, good. So Destroyer's left leg, Kung, what does that do?
It gives you 10% movement speed, I guess?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that once, yeah, that was bound correctly. So Destroyer's left leg. We bought Bourbon and Buff Out. Havert, what do those do?
They give you endurance.
Yes, endurance. And they give you strength, but that doesn't actually matter. I'm making sure this is all bound correctly. There we go. Perfect. We bought frag mines because, as I mentioned earlier, you can target frag mines in vats, which is great for punch warping because we're then not dependent on the locations of enemies and Bethesda AI, because we all know how erratic those can be. We're going to fast travel to Boston Commons along this run because it's slightly faster to fast travel there instead of do the full run. We bought a bunch of Radaway and Stim Packs because we're going to be doing a big run through the Glowing Sea and get a lot of rads. And then also we'll be taking some damage. As you can see, we've already taken a good amount of damage through this run, so we want a lot of Stim Packs. We bought a couple pipe pistols because they are very, very good for item clipping, and we need to do 2 item clips through the run. I bought an extra item. I think I bought a shotgun just in case. Those are also good for clipping. And I think that was mostly all that we bought, and then we bound everything. I bought 10mm and 10mm ammo since we didn't pick it up inside of the vault. Right here is actually where I'm going to be leveling up. I should level up when I discover the plaza right here. Yeah, and that gives me a free AP bar, allowing me to continue to sprint, and as you can see, refresh my HP. And then right here we'll be doing, unfortunately, the last VLC clip of the run. But what this will do is it will put us inside of Diamond City's outer wall. And then all you have to do is run west to an invisible load zone, which will then put us inside of Diamond City. But it won't put us in the back near the bleachers, the outfield seats, if you are familiar with the geography of Fenway. It will instead put us behind home plate in the main entrance. So after we enter Diamond City, I'm then going to walk backwards to exit Diamond City again right away. And then I'm going to make a quick save and then a hard save. And then we're going to fast travel to Vault 111 and go set up another punch warp. And after Vault 111 is in the far, far northwest corner of the map, way up here. And we're about right here. And we want to get to a location somewhere in the middle by Havard's beautiful face. So that's where we want to go. And we're going to be doing a crazy punch warp to get there. We'll see that in a second. And Havard will explain in a second, but in the meantime, we do have time for donations.
Xylok_DNB donated $10. Fantastic work with both gameplay and presentation. Keep it up.
And then one more.
Covet Muffin donated $5. Hey tomatoanus, good luck with the run. Proud of you and your hard work.
Covert.
Here's hoping Doggo is a good boy.
Doggo was a good boy. Covert is my babe. Pog uwu. So we're going to go set up this punch warp real quick. We're going to set up on a very specific tree. Make sure I manage my AP efficiently. So we're going to set that up in quick load. Punch warps are stored through loads. You can set one up and then go load a different save, and you'll still have your punch warp saved. So because of that, we want to make sure our game is completely fresh, no punch warp stored when we do a run. So it's in our rules as a speedrun community that you have to reset your game between every run, which is a bit of a pain, but fairness and all. So. But we're going to be punch warping across the map in a very funky fashion, utilizing something called chunks, or what we call chunks. Yeah. They're technically cells, but Havard, do you want to explain it?
Sure. So he explained we need to go to the Museum of Freedom, which we can't punch warp to. It's set locations. Also, what? I haven't seen that before.
Yikes. I can fix this.
Yeah. So it's somewhere between here. Kind of like off the side, but it doesn't make sense, so don't worry about it. But he will get teleported, but then the game will bork and won't teleport you. It will try to, but then run out of, I guess, the memory it stores your location at is the best guess, I guess, whatever. And then drop you in a cell, or rather a cell wall. Or a cell corner. We're not entirely sure yet. It doesn't quite make sense. Also, it's just this tree.
Yes.
And some other spots in the rest of the world. And that combination of stuff finds Lexington, which he will probably explain why he needs.
Yeah, we'll get there in a moment.
Yeah, and land on Museum of Freedom.
Yes, it's very fortunate. It lands us exactly on the roof of Museum of Freedom. It's
super cool.
Super fortunate. And we don't know exactly how it works. It's one of the more misunderstood or just unknown mechanics of the game, and you just have to throw yourself at a wall over and over and try and figure out if it works. But yeah, as Havard explained, we're going to be traveling across the map, loading a bunch of cells, and landing on top of the Museum of Freedom, hopefully. Who knows? Sometimes this game is very buggy, sometimes in a bad way, not in a good way.
You see, the way you're loading these cells is like not in a line. They like load in and out and not very. But he landed here, so.
Yes, we landed right on the roof. We're going to set up another punch warp, and then we can go and save the Minutemen. So the Minutemen are another faction. They're many would consider them to be the main faction of the game. They're like the righteous good guys who do no wrong. They're the nice guys who never get the girls, more or less. But we have to save them because we need to get into the room they're in and wow, NA aim lol.
What?
Yes, I played 24 hours of CS:GO and it was all in surfing. So. Oh, we need the jet. All right, so we need to save the Minutemen for one reason, and that's because of the Institute Relay Targeting Sequence, which is an item that spawns on a character named Sturges. Pog?
No.
Quantum?
And a buffalo, so.
Oh, sorry. Yes. I'm going to shoot Sturges to aggro him, and I'll explain this in a second. Try and take this item over and over until we get it, and we're going to load warp out, which we'll explain again in a moment. This item will only spawn once we get the nuclear option quest, which is what we got in the sewer, if you remember that, when we quit to the main menu and spawned on top of the water. This item is essentially what sequence breaks the game and allows for us to complete the game. We need this item to complete the main quest because quest triggers, how they're set up. And it will only spawn on Sturges after you get the quest, after you begin it, and we can pickpocket it off them very easily. And that's why we have to do it now after the sewer as opposed to earlier. And you can't interact with Sturges at all if you were to clip into the room. You need to rescue them first. And typically when you enter the room, you may have noticed I shot them like 4 or 5 times and then put away the gun. So they were like, "Oh, you cool." Okay. I understand how you could shoot me 4 or 5 times on accident. It's fine. We do that because it skips a long dialogue because we can't pickpocket Sturges until after the dialogue is over. So we just load warped to Diamond City, which I will explain again in a moment. We have a 5-minute running segment in a second, which is the best time to explain it. Just notice how I'm the same character who just pickpocketed Sturges inside of the Museum of Freedom, but I'm now in Diamond City. Right now, our main priority is to run to Nick Detective's Valentine Agency and enter it and exit very quickly. Nick Valentine is a character who pretty much is a pretty key role. He's a catalyst to the main quest in you trying to find your son. Kind of have neglected the main story so far, but it's not very good, so who cares? Typically, Nick will spawn inside of a vault being guarded by a bunch of mobsters, and we need to rescue him. But by entering his agency and then doing something in the main quest that we typically need Nick to do, by doing that without ever going and getting him, then when we finish that, he will then be spawned back in the agency. So we don't ever have to go rescue him because the game will see that we did the thing we were supposed to do with him, but without him. But we have been to the agency, so it'll just put him there. Which is...
I have a quick, are you sure you load warped? Like, I'm tired, but I'm not quite sure.
Yes.
Okay, good.
At Deathclaw.
Yeah, nice.
But before I get to load warping, we have time for one more donation, so let's do that first.
Brongle donated $10. Good effort so far trying to explain this broken game. Have fun, Tomato Boy.
Thank you, Brongle. Brongle is, along with Ingenia and Havard, one of the main strat finders for this game. Brongle is a madman. He finds things no one will ever think of. So thank you, Brongle. Great to hear from you. But now, load warping. So every time in this game, remember how we were talking about cells earlier with the keyboard, Havard's old keyboard? Well, every time you enter a new cell, the game loads naturally. Well, when you enter the load zone, Bethesda implemented a nice little cinematic fade to black so that you feel more immersed. And during this fade to black, you can do some things that kind of messes around with the game's memory, which we'll get to in a second. But similarly, there's a fade to white after you load in. But pretty much anytime you access a door to enter a new area, there's a fade to black. I'm a little far north here. If you make a quick save, so I made the quick save after I pickpocketed Sturges and I had the item I needed. If you make a quick save, then load an old save, one that was made before the character you normally were, or you just were in the quick save, and you enter a door, and then during that fade to black, that cinematic fade to black, you quick load the character who just pickpocketed Sturgis or any character from the quick save. You'll load in the cell on the other side of that door as intended, but instead of being the character from the old save who was loading in on the other side of that door, you'll then be the character from the quick save. So normally if I were to load that Fen save at Diamond City and run around, I'd be the character who just got there. I wouldn't have the Boston Police rationing site. I wouldn't have been to the Museum of Freedom. I wouldn't have all of those things. But I should bind the, 1 second. I need to bind some things. There we go. But because I did a load warp, I was then the character who just pickpocketed Sturgis, the one who discovered Lexington, as Havard mentioned that we discovered, and we're the one with the Institute Relay targeting sequence, all because we made a quick save and quick loaded during a fade to black. So anytime you see me quick save and then load an old save, unless I messed something up and have to redo it, kind of like I did with the punch warp, it's because I'm load warping. So it's more or less, it's pretty much the same as a fast travel, except utilizing saves instead. So yeah, that's load warping. And it's a really broken mechanic, but it's very good for Fallout 4. It helps us save a lot of time because typically you can't fast travel if you're indoors or near enemies or jumping or falling, but with with load warping, you can pretty much fast travel from indoors or while you're in combat, which is awesome. Saves a good amount of time. We're going to use it to break the game even further at the very end in conjunction with our sequence break of the nuclear option quest line. So, load warping explained. Now, punch warps, there's a slight variant to them, which we call PWIs or punch warp interrupts. A punch warp interrupt. So remember earlier how Havard explained again, the chunks, how you kind of load across the map in different sections? Well, when you load into each section, you gain player control for a very, very small amount of time. And if you mash M to pull up your map, or your Pip-Boy, but typically we just use M. If you mash M to pull up your map, it will pretty much pause the game while it's loading in that brief second where you have control, and it'll stop your punch warp entirely. So we're going to use that, let's see what time we're at, 26, we're fine. I can stop for a second to show on the map what we're gonna do. If we do that, we can hopefully interrupt our punch warp in the location that we need it to be interrupted at, which will hopefully save a lot of time. We're going to be going to a place called Fort Hagen, which is where a place named Kellogg, or which is a place where a man named Kellogg is located. He's the man who kidnapped our son at the start of the run, and we're trying to find him out and get revenge and find our son, because that's important. And when we do that, we're going to punch warp interrupt from the glowing sea. I made a quick save next to a rock. We're going to punch warp from that quick save, to Fort Hagen by using punch warp interrupt. But before I can go, just quick load, I need to make a save here before I can quick load and do that, because we're going to load warp to this location later. And I need to fast travel to Vault 111 real quick to get the game all loaded, because the game, who knows, it doesn't work if you don't do this. So we need to. Before I do it though, so we set up our punch warp in this corner, or no, we set up our punch warp here at Museum of Freedom, right? And we're going to trigger it from here, Crater of Adam. So that will load us across the map, going in this general direction. We're going to mash M to hopefully stop at around this lake right here. And this is about where Fort Hagen is located. So we're going to do that now. And I'm going to set up what's called a cover slide. Before I do this, cover slide is a movement glitch, which allows for us to pretty much slingshot it. Oh, we're wearing a helmet. I didn't even know that. But pretty much, yeah, we're going to do this now and hope it works. Fingers crossed. I don't think it worked.
Should it happen? No, it's not. Yeah, it's not great, but I guess you can run from here.
Yeah, let's just run.
Pretty slow though.
And play it safe. So we have a long running segment, so time for more donations.
Ankames donated $10. Hello, Preston here. I see that you are trying to speedrun this game, but another settlement needs our help. Please help.
That used to be part of the route. We'll talk about that in a moment. Another donation.
Anonymous donated $20. Looking good, Uncle Tomato. Keep it up. Love, Lola, Clark, and Myla.
Lola, Clark, and Myla, I dedicate this run to you. That's my two nieces and nephew. One niece and one nephew. They are dogs and not humans, but still nieces and nephews. Thank you for your donation, dogs and baby. So helping a settlement actually used to be part of the run. There's Fort Hagen. We're here. We made it. Helping settlements used to be part of the run. We would have to go and help a settlement who had an issue with bloat flies because they're very formidable. They're a formidable foe that very difficult, and the settlers can't do it themselves. Unfortunately, I'm not going to use the cover slide here because monka-s. But it used to be part of the route where we would just go there and kill the settlers because that would count as completing the quest.
They don't have a problem anymore if they're dead.
Exactly. They had an ammo shortage. They needed us to give them 2 bullets, one to each head. So that's what we would do. That's why they couldn't kill the blowflies. I'm going to do a gun clip here to get into Fort Hagen, by the way. There we go. Here's a cover slide, by the way. See how it kind of slingshot me back? That's what a cover slide looks like. And we'll do one later. But for now, we need to get our Fat Man ready, because as I said earlier, big gun skill check. In order to do the big gun skill check, I need to have the Fat Man, and I need to have it out. You'll see what I mean. But we're going to do a gun clip into the basement real quick and bump ourselves against the wall, which will trigger Kellogg to spawn. So clip that. Oh, here we go. Clip out. Oh, clip out. First try. Land. And then we're going to negotiate with Kellogg real quick. And then we're going to loot his body for the items we need. And that was our big gun skill check. Now we're going to view the access logs, and we're going to load warp back out to the fens. And now this will have sequence broken? Braked? Who knows? Kong, do you know sequence break or broken?
Brokered.
Okay, sequence borked the quest to the point where Kellogg will spawn. There we go, load warp. Or no, sorry, not Kellogg, Valentine. We don't want Kellogg to be alive again. Valentine will spawn. And we'll go talk with him in a moment. But first, we have to go to Lexington. It's the location that we discovered on our punch warp from Boston Police rationing site to the roof of the Museum of Freedom. And the reason we go to Lexington is because we need to build a teleporter to get into the Institute, right? Well, in order to build a teleporter in this game, you're not an independent person. You're used to relying on your spouse. After all, she was the breadwinner. She was a lawyer. So we need to rely on a faction to help us build a teleporter. And the faction that we're going to use is named the Railroad. And in order to build a teleporter with any faction in the game, you need to build their trust. And in order to build their trust, you need to do quests for them. And the Railroad quests have the fastest loyalty quest in the game for us to do in the speedrun. What it consists of is us going to Lexington. And what we're going to do, let me make sure I'm topped off on health, because that is muy importante. We are going to go into this place called the Switchboard, which is in the basement of Slocum Joe's. And we're going to set up a punch warp and then do a clip and then pick up an item called Carrington's Prototype, which is an item you need to retrieve for the quest. But turns out, if you just pick it up and drop it without ever having met the Railroad, it counts as pretty much completing the quest. And so yeah, we're going to grab a cake pan, clip out of bounds real quick, and fall, break our legs, jump down again, grab Carrington's Prototype and the Fat Man, and now just drop Carrington's Prototype, and it'll say Tradecraft, leave the switchboard, which we will do now with our punch warp. And now, when we go and meet the Railroad, they'll meet us and be like, hey, who are you? And then, not even 20 seconds later, they'll say, hey, great job fighting with our man Deacon and killing 1,000 synths. How about you join us and be named Fixer? So that's going to happen. That's a thing. And that was kind of found with I helped. It was mostly Havard and Gingenia, and they were talking about trying to figure it. And
Extra mostly Gingenia, I think that one.
yeah. And they were just like, just try dropping it, LOL. So we dropped it, and pretty much all of our jaws dropped. Like, oh, okay, that's a thing. So yeah. Now we're going to go meet the Railroad, because the order of these things, it makes most sense for us to meet the Railroad and join them before we go and talk with Valentine, who we saved, and then we do the Memory Den quest, which is the most resident sleeper part of the run. But first we're going to set up another punch warp here on a car, and we're going to say hi to the father of speedrunning real quick, Paul Revere. Papa Paul bless. So then once we enter the museum, or sorry, not the Museum of Freedom, there's a fly flying around. Trigger our punch warp, fall out of bounds, COC next to the railroad. And they don't care that we just appeared out of nowhere. They were standing here waiting for us. They knew we were going to be here. In the dark, yes. Just the three of them standing in a line, waiting in the dark. And just, yes, thing. That makes sense.
No wonder they don't get anything done.
Exactly. The railroad, if you're unfamiliar they name themselves after the Underground Railroad in American history. If you are unaware, they helped liberate slaves. So similarly, this railroad helps liberate synths from the Institute, who are robots, but they're pretty sentient. So they view them as people as well. So they want to help liberate them from the Institute, hence them being called the railroad as well. And they are bunkered up beneath Old North Church in Boston. This game takes place in Boston. News alert. We're going to set up another cover slide right here. We'll be doing that cover slide for sure in a moment, as soon as Desdemona moves. But yeah, we've now joined the railroad. Now that we've joined the railroad, Desdemona is going to walk in and give us a tour of the place and introduce us to everybody. But that is big slow. So instead, we're going to fast travel to Lexington, back to the railroad, and then to Diamond City. That will pass just enough time and hit just enough triggers for all of Desdemona's dialogue to be fully skipped the next time we come back to the railroad, which is big fast. So back to the railroad. Also earlier, before the long running segment, before I explained load warping, we leveled up both Action Boy?
Action Boy.
Yes, and solar powered. Action Boy, it regenerates our AP. It causes for our AP to regenerate at a rate of 25% faster. So it helps a ton with sprinting, saves a lot of time. And then solar powered increases both our endurance. That's a cover slide, by the way. Well, increases both our endurance and strength by 2 between the hours of 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. Or is it 6 a.m.?
6, I think.
Yeah, I forget which it is.
Doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Daytime.
Daytime, yes, during sun hours. Because we were solar powered. I won't go for that. So that's very good because more endurance during the glowing sea run, the long running segment. But yeah, now that we've rescued Nick from Dino and what's his name? Skinny something? Skinny Malone, the leader of the Triggermen. He's now with us. I'm forever grateful because we personally rescued him. The game is frozen.
Classic. Fallout 4.
Fallout 4. Oh, it's back! Yo!
Of course it
Sick.
is.
Game. Okay. Anyways, as I was saying, we rescue him and forever grateful. He will accompany us to the end of the earth. So we will now go to the memory den because we want to convince him, hey, no, we're not exciting to be with. We're going to do only boring things. So he will then leave us. But pretty much this part of the story, if you're unfamiliar, so our son got kidnapped. We saw our wife get shot. Didn't really acknowledge it because, she was a bit naggy. Anyways, Kill Kellogg, turns out he doesn't have our son, but it turns out he has a lot of cybernetic enhancements because he does a lot of work for the Institute. So Kellogg's actually a pretty old dude, but he looks young because of all these cybernetic enhancements. One of them is a brain enhancement. And we can use this brain enhancement and put it inside of this machine called a memory lounger, and then pretty much use Nick's body as a proxy and be able to explore Kellogg's memories inside of Nick's mind. And with that, hopefully, we'll find an entrance to the Institute, and with that, hopefully find our son, Sean. Spoiler alert, we won't see Sean at all in this run. Typically, when you meet him, it's the midpoint of the run. Spoiler alert, close your eyes until the timer says 37:45. He's an old man now because he got kidnapped way in the past. But pretty much, yeah, we're not going to see Sean at all, but Kellogg, we get his memories, and we're going to find out where the Institute is, hopefully from his memories, and that's what we're doing right now. I'm setting up a punch warp and a save there to load back later and set up another punch warp. And this is all to skip Amari's dialogue. Once we load back in, we're going to throw another frag mine, trigger the punch warp, end up in the basement again. So, not favorites. I'm going to do that. Back in the basement, and she's done talking. And now we're going to talk with her, and then in order to skip a long, unskippable dialogue, which we shoot her until she aggroes to us, and Nick aggroes to her since he's our ride or die. And then we put away our gun and sit down, and hopefully the screen will fade to white immediately, There we go. Yes, perfect. So we skipped this long dialogue, saves around 22 to 24 seconds.
It's super nice.
Yes, very nice. I found it on accident, trying something else, and there's a bunch of conditions for it to be met. So pure fluke that it was found.
Yeah, it happens because she can't talk when she's like lying there, like hurt.
Yes, but Nick has to be aggro.
Yeah.
Who knows why? Bethesda.
Probably because he also needs to be like in the entering thing afterwards.
Yeah,
so.
it might be. But
Yeah,
it's as Todd intended.
Yeah.
But this is a long, drawn-out walking segment, around 5 or so minutes, including standing around and doing nothing. I have out a $250 bounty on if you can find a way to skip entering the memories in a way that is both applicable to any percent as well as faster than going through the memories. So who knows? We want a quick buck and you know how to do it? DM me. DMs are open. Slide on in. Anyways, we have time for a couple donations.
Ankamies donated $5. Preston here again. How about settlements? They need our help.
No thanks.
John F. donated $20. Looking as handsome as ever, Tomato. Great job, love ya. Mama Bear and John.
That is Mom Tatoanus and Stepdad Tatoanus sending their love from the U.S. Helping out the Swedish Alzheimer's Foundation. Send in your money to help. Hopefully find a way to sequence break Alzheimer's to the cure. But yeah, this long-running segment, we're going through all of Kellogg's memories, and then we'll end up in the final memory, where we will be standing around for, I think this part's around 2.5 minutes.
It's long.
Yeah, it's long, and we just stand here and watch. So pretty much the story, Kellogg's sitting here cleaning his gun. This guy he's a courser. It's an advanced robot, strong, big synth. He's going to come in, and he's pretty much a hitman for the Institute. He does all their dirty work. He's going to come in and speak with Kellogg, a.k.a. me, because we're in Kellogg's memories, so technically we're playing as him. And they're going to talk about random stuff going on in the world. And this is Sean. This is our son. Pretty much they're going to talk about just bringing him back and whatnot. So now we know Sean's alive, and oh my god, he aged like 8 years, but it turns out, no, we were refrozen for like 70 years after he got kidnapped. So he's actually an old man, and that's why Kellogg looks the same, because he has cybernetic enhancements. And yes, plot, not predictable. But during this segment, we can't really do anything. We can jump, but we cannot crouch. We cannot sprint. We can't pull up our guns. Can't do that. Can't pull up our Pip-Boy. Can't do really anything. Can't enter third person. We have what's called input enable layers on, which more or less enable and disable player actions. So we have one on for that pretty much controls a lot of things like movement, and one on that I think there's one that controls Pip-Boy. And there is a way to be able to load warp out of here. Everyone always says, oh, why don't you just load warp out of the memories? You'll be out of them. Because of those input enable layers, we can't do jack shit out of the memories after we enter, because we're in this ghost state. So we can't just load warp out. The game will be essentially soft locked. But we'll still have the ghost state. We'll still have this like fun visual effect on that kind of makes it look more hazy. Right now, you might notice that things far off in the distance are pretty blurry. It's kind of hard to tell in this room. Things far off in the distance are pretty blurry comparative to what they normally are. And it's very bad when you load warp out. It's like you have a terrible glasses prescription, or you need one because your eyes are awful. But we can't do anything. We have put dozens on dozens of hours into how to get out of this and make it work. And we can't do it. We don't know why. But yeah, once this finally ends, finally over, the slowest part of the run, we'll be entering the final phase of the run, which is essentially, we know we need to build a teleporter, let's do it and end the game. But as we enter, Amari wants to talk with us, so we're just, instead of talking with her, we're going to just take out our gun and shoot her and make her a little more bloodied, because as you can see, she's still very bloody. Then I'll skip her dialogue, I make a quick save, and I'm going to load warp to the cave that we ran up to inside of the glowing sea. And we're going to load warp into it. And the reason why we made the save here is because after we complete the memory den, a character named Brian Virgil will spawn, and Virgil is a former Institute scientist turned super mutant from a test. Poor dude. His shoes are broken because of it. he's essentially going to be the middleman with, he's more or less our brain in the operations. He and one other guy later on. They're going to be, he has the teleporter plans. The other guy will help decipher the plans and help us build the teleporter. So we need to talk with Brian Virgil and pretty much tell him that we'll help him cure himself and become a human again. But we're not going to do that. Poor Brian. Instead, we're just going to kind of ignore him after we're pretty much gonna, we're not gonna talk with him. We're just gonna ghost him. And you may be saying right now, like, oh well, why did you have to run all the way to the through the glowing sea to talk with him or make the save? Why couldn't you have just punched warped there or cover slid there? After all, those seemingly teleport you across the map. Well, yes, but no. When you punch warp and cover slide, you are punch warping and cover sliding to the coordinates where you have them set up. And the coordinates in the far southwest corner of the map are so big and so extreme, there aren't really any other places in the game, interior or exterior, that have coordinates that even remotely line up to it. Typically, the coordinates will line up with the center of the map, where we originally punch warped to. And that's why we end up at Green Tech Genetics, and we have to run across the whole map. When I did the initial punch warp, I did land next to Green Tech Genetics, and I made sure to discover it. But once we enter Green Tech Genetics, I'm going to make a quick save real quick, and then I'm going to load the save that I made while I was exiting the memory den to skip Amari's dialogue, and I'll set up a punch warp there. And what that will do is it will allow for me to then punch warp up several floors inside of Green Tech Genetics, which will then allow for me to skip a lot of running and a lot of combat. And then we'll set up another punch warp and then do our second big gun skill check in the run. This time with the Courser. We need to get a Courser chip inside of his mind, but he's a pretty friendly dude. All we have to do is talk with him and ask him to hand it over. And that will, we intimidate him. I don't want that out yet. So
cool that this is what Green Tech looks like now.
Yeah,
I love it.
Green Tech used to be a lot of running and 2 item climbs, but now it's just 2 punch warps. It's super smooth. I do miss one of the item climbs, but it's okay. But yeah, pretty much we're going to land up here, take out our Fat Man, and we're going to talk with the Courser real quick. Break both our arms, as is typical, and load warp back to the fens. And this will then put us back outside because normally, after you kill the Courser, you run up a nearby flight of stairs and then exit, and then you'll be able to fast travel wherever you want because you'll be on top of the roof, you'll be outside. But rather than run and interact with terminals indoors, we just load warp to Diamond City, and then we can fast travel wherever we want. So it's pretty fast. It's very nice. And after we load warp, we'll then go to the Railroad HQ again, which is where the railroad is located. And we will then tell them, hey, we need to teleport. And yeah, the quest is going to play out pretty much. Loading screens. A lot of people don't know this. If you press your VATS button on the loading screen, it highlights in whatever color your VATS is. Very cool. My favorite feature of the game. But yeah, once we load in, right here, we're going to be doing a bunch of looting inside of the Railroad HQ because we do need to take advantage of the settlement building aspects, settlement building aspects of the game. Not you. There. And in order to build everything, we need to have a bunch of random knickknacks that can be scrapped for different items, different components. And yeah. I'm going to sleep right here real quick to skip a walking segment, and I'm going to shoot a bit to skip some dialogues. Set up hopefully another cover slide right there. This is a variation called a dialogue slide. But pretty much right now, we handed over the Courser chip to Desdemona and Tinker Tom, and did a bunch of looting in the meantime. We'll do a little more looting in a second. And gave the Courser chip to Tinker Tom, who will now decode the Courser chip and determine the exact location of the Institute and how for us to utilize the Courser chip to teleport in. And then we will be able to build the teleporter. But normally, that was a really good one.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. That was a cover slide, by the way. I'm going to quick save and load warp back to the glowing sea because now we can talk with Virgil. But Normally, there's this, it's like it's 12 or something dialogue lines, like really long, you can't skip, you sit there while Tom hacks the mainframe, enters the matrix. If you are fast enough, for some reason, if you let his lines progress too much before you fast travel around, it won't skip them fully. You have to fast travel early rather than later. You need to hear more of his lines for it to work. If you fast travel away, exit the HQ, and then re-enter, it will skip all of his lines, and you'll be able to fast travel to the glowing sea again and speak with Virgil again. And Virgil will now give us the teleporter plans now that we have decoded a courser chip. Oh, there we go. So now we have the plans for the signal interceptor, which is the key part in the teleporter. So now we can go and talk with the railroad. We'll give the plan to Tom. Tom will make out the plans because I think he says something like, "It looks like it was written by a kid" or something like that. Did you write this with a crayon? Except in a French accent, I can't do that. But talk with Tom. First, Desdemona. We're going to shoot her a couple more times to some more dialogue. Let her know that we need to build a teleporter. Pray that we get a good Tom spot, which we did. Sometimes Tom will be in a bad spot and he'll make it so you can't skip any of his lines and you'll lose a lot of time. But we got a good spot. He said, "Did you write this with a crayon?" We're going to progress the dialogues enough so that we can then go and start building the teleporter in Sanctuary. Before I do that, though, I need to make sure to drop the military-grade circuit board that we picked up in Fort Hagen when we killed Kellogg, because a military-grade circuit board can be scrapped for, I believe, 5 circuitry. I forget the exact number, but if we don't drop it, then the game will automatically scrap it, even though we have other circuitry items. So we need to drop it so that it doesn't get scrapped while we build the platform, whatever platform. It's stable. Yeah, you know, the platform. So now, once we're back here, we'll talk with Tom once more, pick up our circuit board again. There we go, there he is. There we go. And he will give us the rest of the plans. At which point we can then go back to Sanctuary, finish building the teleporter, and then teleport into the Institute and begin the final quest of the game, and pretty much try and make sense of the gibberish that is the coding of the final quest of the game, because it's a doozy. It's a doozy. There we go. Sometimes these things take forever to load in. We need to power everything. We should have enough for everything. Yeah, that's all connected. Sometimes you'll think that you connected it, but it won't. Yeah, we all good. There we go. Speak with Des one more time. Wait for her to stop soft locking or hesitating. This is very slow. Lots of slowness and hesitation right here. She will say her lines, and then normally right here there's a very long dialogue that you have to sit through where Tinker Tom powers up the teleporter, but instead you just step on the platform and fast travel away, and that skips the teleporter. You don't have to stand there and wait while the thing falls apart while you're teleporting. If you don't know, in the main story, when you use the teleporter, it destroys itself. So that can't be a thing anymore. But yeah, we teleport into the Institute now. And as we load in, we are going to put that Institute relay targeting sequence that we picked up off of Sturgis. We're going to put that into the computer, and that will bring in Preston. And you'll be like, wait, I thought you were doing the quest with the railroad. And so did we. This game is weird. Pretty much, the way that we got the nuclear option, no, that's not what I would do. There we go, set up a punch rope. The way that we got nuclear option, more or less, we didn't begin the quest normally. We kind of started the quest in the middle. And because of that, the game says, okay, well, who did you actually start the quest with? And it starts looking back. It looks back to which faction you got your first, the first stage of the quest with, more or less. Make a hard save here for load warping. Oh, this is, by the way, is the hardest clip in the game. You sit down in the chair with our helmet, and you press stand up. As intended. Big intention.
Still works on current patch, by the way.
Yes. And we're going to pop some jet, which increases our jump height and slows down time, and sequence break the institute by going very far. But anyways, because we started the quest in the middle, the game goes back and checks to see which quests we completed before it. And because we completed none of them, it defaults to the Minutemen. I think it's the Minutemen it defaults to. But because we build the teleporter with the railroad, the game thinks that we're also building we're also completing the game with the railroad. So we're essentially finishing the game with 2 factions at the same time. And Preston gave us a fusion pulse charge, which we will use to blow up the institute, kill our sun inadvertently. And after we place it, we're going to load warp out and cross our fingers that we don't get something called Miku locked, because that will slow down the run a lot.
Yeah, that would be bad.
Yes. Fingers crossed. So we load warp out. Typically, when you are in the institute, you aren't able to fast travel until you complete a quest named Institutionalized, which is the get to know you quest of the institute. Because they don't want people fast traveling in and out if they're an enemy. They only want their own members to. And we don't do institutionalized, so we can't typically fast travel in and out. But the game is buggy, and with the way we do this, we for some reason are able to fast travel around. But the game is too buggy, and sometimes it will say no. Todd will say no. Fingers crossed that it works.
Okay, yes.
Bless up. Anyways, when you load warp out of the institute, the ban on fast traveling will carry over to you being outside. We need to aggro the railroad real quick, because that will skip a long dialogue with Desdemona and teleport us back into the institute. At which point we will just fast travel back to the railroad and speak with Tinker Tom and give him the go-ahead to blow up the institute. Wait for that to happen. There we go. Fast travel back to the railroad, speak with Tom, and pretty much the run ends when the game, it's Fallout. There's no end to the game, so the category should be main quest, because that's really what we're doing is we're completing the main quest, and that's dictated by when the end cinematic begins. Skip a couple lines real quick. And pretty much to do that, we need to speak with Tom, and he will arm the fusion pulse charge that we planted on the reactor. And after we arm the bomb with Tom, we quick save and now do the hardest load warp in the game. Fingers crossed that we get it first try, because we can't press it during the fade to black. Looked okay.
Yeah.
Maybe a little.
We'll see in the corner.
Yeah, maybe a little early. We'll see.
Yeah, load warp is like you queue up actions.
Yeah, it works.
Nah,
What?
that looked good. SMH.
Yeah, I thought it worked.
Come on, Todd.
Yeah, so he has frames on a PC game doesn't really work the same as on a console, but it's a very, very small.
That looked early again.
Yeah.
But yeah, so typically when you load warp, you could just load warp if there's not a door. Like when we load warp to the glowing sea, when we load warp to the fence, there's not a door. We just kind of walk into an empty area, and there's the fade to black. There is a fade to black with this, but the timing is different. You have to do it while the door is still opening, because that's just the timing. That's how it works. That looked better. I think that was it.
We've been doing this load warp ever since load warping was discovered, so
Yes.
every single runner of this game has had to learn this.
Yes.
And
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a bit difficult, but with practice, it's not too difficult. It's not very hard. We got it. So
Yeah,
now we're in the institute. We've armed the bomb, and the run is nearing its completion. Underestimate, thank the Lord. All we have to do is run into this teleporter, and we can actually kill Desdemona here, and it won't ruin the game. Apparently, she knows someone named Sam. We don't know if it's a lover, a brother, who knows. But he's not in the game other than that line. Pretty fun bit of trivia. And once we load in, we're going to run up and just mash E on the detonator, and then hopefully see some fireworks at night. I hope it's nighttime, because that's a more cinematic showcase of the big explosion. Bless up, it is night. But yeah, that's pretty much the run. Time is going to be coming up soon. I'll let you know exactly when. The Fallout 4, a lot of work from this man a little bit, and a lot of work from Gingenia, Barangle, a lot of other people as well throughout the years. Time is coming up now. That's time. That's Fallout 4. I hope you enjoyed, and enjoy the rest of Stream 2 tomorrow and Stream 1 forever till the end of tomorrow.
I can feel it.
Stream 1 doesn't turn off.
The heat of force